man chase them, is because they're chasing themselves, not in motion, but in fragmentation. In a world that demands performance, they've lost touch with presence. Let us begin with this reflection. You do not become more desirable by becoming more impressive. You become magnetic the moment you stop fighting to be enough and instead return to your natural state, still, aware, and inwardly whole. You see, the most attractive women I have met did not wear desire on their sleeves. They wore clarity in their eyes. They were not loud, but you noticed them. They didn't ask to be chased, but you followed them in thought long after they had left the room. Why? Because what they carried inside themselves could not be bought. It could not be learned overnight. It was not in their beauty. It was in their balance. This balance is what the modern world has traded for urgency. But to make any man truly chase you, not for a moment, but with devotion, you must first return to this center. To be chased is not a goal, it is a consequence of your relationship with yourself. So, if you wish to be unforgettable, don't start with him. Start with silence. Let's now walk through the path of self-mastery and emotional alchemy that draws true connection. Not through tactics, but through transformation. There is a silence more powerful than words. Before the lips move, before the eyes even meet, something has already been communicated. It is subtle, but unmistakable. A man senses it not through logic, but through something deeper. Intuition, instinct, a whisper of the body reading the body. That unspoken signal is energy. And energy, unlike language, does not lie. When we speak of how to inspire a man to chase you, we are not referring to tricks or games, to a chase initiated by scarcity or manipulation. That chase ends as quickly as it begins, leaving both people emptier than before. Instead, we speak of a pursuit that emerges from resonance, the kind of pull that cannot be explained but can certainly be felt, a pull that comes from presence. Your energy precedes you. It is the silent messenger of your nervous system, your thoughts, your intentions. When you walk into a room filled with peace, clarity, and wholeness, you draw attention without asking for it. Not because you are loud, but because you are still. Not because you are flawless, but because you are fully yourself. Think of someone who once captivated you, not for their appearance, but for something else. Maybe they didn't say much. Maybe they weren't even trying, but something about them made you lean in, made you want to know more. That was not performance, that was presence. This presence is biological, it is also spiritual. The brain's limbic system, the emotional core, responds instantly to signals of safety and congruence. A person whose inner world is aligned, whose body is not tensed in invisible defense, becomes a safe space, and safety is deeply attractive. In contrast, a person who is scattered, anxious, or trying too hard to prove something sends mixed signals. The body detects this long before the mind rationalizes it. Emotional energy is a frequency. Just as a radio tunes into specific bands, people attune to certain energies. When your energy is calm and grounded, you transmit stability, and stability is rare. A man who senses it is pulled toward it, not to control it, but to rest in it. He may not even understand why, but he will remember how he felt near it, not judged, not needed, not expected to perform, just seen as he is. But this energy cannot be faked. It must be cultivated. A woman once came to me, her voice low with frustration. "Why is it," she asked, "that I keep getting attention from men who lose interest the moment I stop chasing them? Why do they not pursue me with intention?" She believed the issue lay with them. But as we spoke, something emerged. She carried a deep fear of being alone. In every interaction, her words were calm, but her energy screamed, "Please don't leave. Please choose me." This desperation was invisible to the eye, but not to the heart. It coated every sentence, every silence. And the moment a man felt that pull, he instinctively stepped back. Not because he was cruel, but because something felt off. Her words invited him forward. Her energy warned him away. This is why we must first attune to ourselves before trying to connect with another. When you embody the energy of need, you create repulsion. When you embody the energy of wholeness, you create magnetism. There is a reason monks, even in silence, are deeply compelling. Their energy does not demand, it invites. Their presence does not try to be seen, it simply is. And in that stillness, others feel themselves. Men do not chase women who are needy. They chase women who make them feel needed, not because the woman lacks, but because she inspires the man to rise. This is not a contradiction. It is a subtle truth. Neediness stems from lack. Need in the noble sense, being valued, being wanted, is a gift to the masculine. When a man senses you are whole, but that you choose him not from fear, but from preference, he feels honored. And that honor becomes devotion. How do you cultivate this energy? It begins with nervous system regulation. Breath is the foundation. When you breathe slowly, deeply, and intentionally, your body enters a state of safety. From this place, your eyes soften, your voice slows, your thoughts untangle, and you become aware, not of what you must do to attract, but of what you must release to return to yourself. This is the first step to being chaste. Not to perform, not to pursue, not to ask, what should I say? But to ask instead, what energy am I holding? In one village, there was a woman named Hannah. She was not particularly beautiful by the world's standards. Her clothes were simple. She spoke gently. But wherever she went, people felt something change. They breathed easier. Children sat quietly near her. Men who passed by often turned to watch her walk away, as though she carried a secret the world had forgotten. One day a young girl asked her, "How do you make everyone feel so calm?" Hannah smiled, "Because I no longer try to make anyone feel anything. I learned to be with myself. And now, wherever I go, I simply bring myself." This is the lesson. You are not required to chase. You are required to return to yourself, to your breath, to your center. And from that place, the right people will feel you long before they understand you. Now, when we speak of emotional resonance, we must also speak of timing and space, which brings us to something most people misunderstand: the value of mystery. Mystery is not about withholding. It is not about playing games or pretending to be disinterested when your heart is full. Mystery, in its highest form, is the result of depth. When you live fully, when you feel deeply, when you nurture your soul, you become layered. And those layers are not quickly revealed. They cannot be, for what is profound cannot be rushed. The modern mind seeks instant access. We are conditioned to expect fast answers, fast intimacy, fast validation. But emotional depth does not live in speed. It lives in unfolding. When a man meets a woman who offers all of herself too quickly, he may be pleased, but not moved. He may be entertained, but not transformed. What changes a man is not the availability of the woman's body, but the mystery of her being. That mystery is not something you create, it is something you protect. When you rush to reveal every thought, every plan, every feeling, you collapse the sacred space that longing needs to grow. You see, pursuit is not driven by knowing. It is driven by not fully knowing, by curiosity, by tension, by the hope of discovering something more. This is supported by research in neuropsychology. The brain's reward system is not activated most by certainty, but by anticipation. Dopamine spikes not when we receive the thing we desire, but when we are about to receive it. This means that when you hold back, not from fear, but from alignment, you give the masculine mind the very thing it craves, the journey towards something worth earning. A man once told me about the woman who changed his life. He met her during a retreat in the mountains. They shared long walks, short conversations, and moments of shared silence. She never tried to impress him. She laughed easily, but did not explain herself. She would sometimes disappear for hours, returning with herbs or stories she had gathered from strangers. There was something in her eyes that suggested oceans lived behind them. He could see the shore, but not the bottom. I didn't fall in love because she told me everything, he said. I fell in love because I couldn't stop wondering what else was there. This is not manipulation. It is mystery. And mystery is not withholding love. It is revealing it like a sunrise, slowly, tenderly, allowing the light to grow, not explode. There is also power in space. When you do not rush to fill every silence, you allow the other to step into it. When you do not reply instantly, you create the conditions for yearning. But to do this requires trust, not in the other, but in life itself. It requires knowing that if a connection is true, time will not break it. That if a man is truly aligned with your frequency, he will not forget you. He will be drawn to you, not because you reminded him, but because your energy lingered. This is why wholeness is essential. When you are full within yourself, you are not afraid of space. You do not fear waiting. You do not interpret stillness as rejection. And so, paradoxically, you become more pursued, more desired, because your energy is not chasing. It is resting, and rest is rare. A woman who is not afraid of being alone becomes irresistible, because her presence is not desperate. It is sovereign. In Eastern philosophy, the Tao speaks of the feminine as the valley, the space that receives, holds, and nourishes. It does not climb, it does not shout, it draws water to itself by being low. This is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. To embody mystery is not to hide. It is to reveal slowly, to speak when the moment is ripe, to leave room for the other to seek. Not because they are manipulated to do so, but because they are magnetized by something they cannot yet name. Remember this: to make a man chase you is not to make him run. It is to inspire him to walk toward you steadily, intentionally, because your energy does not demand. It invites, and invitation is more powerful than instruction. There is a quiet rebellion more powerful than loud declarations. It is the rebellion of emotional discipline in a world addicted to reaction. Most people do not realize this. When you learn to master your emotions, you do not become cold, you become free. In relationships, particularly romantic ones, it is easy to confuse vulnerability with reactivity, but they are not the same. Vulnerability is the strength to reveal truth without forcing a reaction. Reactivity, on the other hand, is what happens when we allow past wounds to speak louder than present awareness. And every time we react unconsciously, we push away the very intimacy we crave. To inspire a man to come closer, to chase, to commit, to see you not only with his eyes, but with his soul, you must first become a master of your own inner weather. This is not a concept rooted in suppression. On the contrary, it is about understanding. Emotional discipline is not the refusal to feel. It is the willingness to feel fully, and yet not be led blindly by the feeling. A woman who is calm in conflict, who pauses before she speaks, who does not give her power away in moments of disappointment, creates an emotional sanctuary. And men, especially those who have never been safe to feel, are drawn to that sanctuary like parched travelers to water. There was once a woman who had been deeply hurt. Her partner of several years had left her unexpectedly, not with cruelty, but with confusion. In the silence that followed, she felt her body scream to lash out, to demand closure, to say something that would pierce the heart that had pierced hers. But instead, she chose a different path. Each morning, she sat quietly for 10 minutes and simply breathed. When anger arose, she noticed it. When grief surged, she let it move through her. But she did not let it drive her. Days turned into weeks. The emotions did not vanish, but they softened. In time, she wrote one final message to the man. It said, "I am choosing peace, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I will no longer extend the pain beyond its moment." She did not send it to hurt him. She sent it because it was true. And in the end, he replied, not with defense, but with apology. Her stillness had reached where her shouting never could. This is the power of emotional discipline. Neuroscience tells us that the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, reacts to perceived threats in milliseconds. It does not wait for clarity. It acts fast, fueled by fear or memory. But between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom. The more you widen that space, the more you reclaim your power. In relationships, this looks like choosing to listen instead of interrupting. It looks like breathing instead of blaming. It looks like stepping back when your mind wants to pounce forward. And in that stillness, you become a mirror. A man looks at you and does not see chaos. He sees clarity. He feels your boundaries not as walls, but as invitations to rise. This is why emotional discipline is so magnetic. It shows a man that you are not there to be rescued. You are not there to be fixed. You are there to co-create. Not from wounding, but from wisdom. The mind may tell you that reactivity is power, that to shout louder is to be heard. But look back at your own life. When did you feel most seen? Was it when someone exploded? Or when someone held your storm without adding their own? The truth is, men, especially those seeking depth, do not want a woman who fights for attention. They want a woman who commands it silently through presence, through discernment, through the ability to stay calm in chaos. There was a story once told of a man who fell deeply in love with a woman he met while traveling through a remote village. She was quiet, observant, and her words carried weight not because they were many, but because they were measured. One evening, he accidentally offended her in front of others. Embarrassed, he expected a sharp retort. Instead, she simply looked at him with calm eyes and said, "Is that how you speak to those you respect?" Nothing more. Her voice was soft, her tone without anger, but her presence spoke volumes. He later said that moment changed him, not because she made him feel guilty, but because she revealed a higher standard, not just for how he should treat her, but for how he should treat himself. This is the transformative power of emotional regulation. It elevates not only your energy, but the energy of those around you. It raises the emotional maturity of the relationship itself. But to arrive at this stillness, we must tend to what is underneath the reactivity. Often, what drives emotional outbursts is not the present situation, but the echo of unresolved pain, a fear of abandonment, a belief of not being enough, a need for control dressed up as communication. Until these wounds are met with awareness, we will unconsciously bring them into every interaction, expecting others to solve what only we can soothe. This is why self-reflection is essential. When you notice a pattern in your reactions, ask, what belief is underneath this? When you feel the urge to lash out, ask, what is this really about? With each layer uncovered, you take another step toward freedom. Freedom to love without fear. Freedom to express without exploding. Freedom to connect from presence, not pain. And from this freedom, something magical happens. The feminine essence begins to shine. The feminine is not demanding, it is magnetic. And yet, so many have misunderstood what this means. In an age that equates movement with power, the art of stillness has been forgotten. But stillness is not passivity. It is power without effort. The most magnetic women I have known did not chase. They did not explain. They did not beg to be chosen. They stood rooted in themselves, like trees who do not follow the wind, but allow the wind to dance through them. In their presence, men felt something ancient, something familiar, a peace that needed no justification. There is a story of a young woman who once visited an elder in the mountains. She asked, "How do I make someone fall in love with me?" The elder poured 2 cups of tea. One he filled to the brim, spilling over. The other he poured gently, leaving space. "The first is what you do when you give everything at once," she said. "There is no room left to receive. The second is what you do when you leave space for curiosity, for longing, for choice. To be magnetic is to leave space. When you embody the feminine fully, you do not chase the flame. You become the hearth. And the flame, if it is wise, finds you. Physiologically, this is supported by the hormonal interplay between the masculine and feminine. When a woman is relaxed in her body, enjoying her life, her oxytocin levels rise. This hormone not only fosters trust and bonding, it also signals to others that she is emotionally open, yet self-contained. This triggers the protective and attentive instincts in masculine energy. A woman who is in pleasure, not performance, awakens pursuit. But pursuit is not about drama. It is about desire with direction. And that direction is given by your energy. When your energy is open but not desperate, soft but not submissive, inviting but not empty, you become a kind of gravitational force. Not through beauty, through balance. I once observed a woman in a cafe. She was not dressed extravagantly. She wore a shawl, her hair pinned simply. But there was something about her, the way she stirred her tea, the way she looked out the window as though the rain was telling her a story. Men glanced, waiters lingered, not because she was trying, but because she wasn't. She wasn't distracted. She wasn't scrolling her phone. She was simply there, fully present, fully alive. And in that presence, she became unforgettable. The feminine in its purest form does not need to compete. It simply is. And in being, it attracts. To cultivate this magnetism, one must first detach from the outcome. If you seek to be chased from fear of being alone, you lose the magnetism. But when you rest in your own presence, when you trust that what is meant will come, not as a reward for suffering, but as a reflection of your alignment, you stop chasing. You start drawing. You draw not only men, you draw peace. You draw purpose. You draw the kind of love that does not need to be hunted down because it arrives of its own accord. This shift is internal. It begins when you no longer ask, "What must I do to be loved?" and start asking, "Who am I when I am loving myself?" The answer to that question changes everything. From this space, you are no longer a performer on the stage of romance. You are the stage itself, still, grounded, essential. And he who is ready will walk across it, humbled not by your invitation, but by the feeling that in you, something sacred has been remembered. To walk in authenticity is to walk in quiet power. But this authenticity is not what most people believe it to be. It is not just about speaking your mind. It is not about sharing every emotion the moment it rises. It is not the loud declaration of, "This is who I am," made from defensiveness or pride. True authenticity is quieter. It comes not from the desire to be seen, but from the peace of already having seen yourself. When you live from a place of inner clarity, there is a consistency in your presence. People may not always agree with you. They may not always understand you, but they feel something in you that is steady, unwavering. That steadiness, rare in a world of reaction, is what draws others toward you. Especially in intimate relationships, it creates a field of emotional trust where attraction grows, not in bursts, but in deepening waves. The heart is drawn not to chaos, but to coherence. When you are unclear within, you send conflicting signals. Your words say one thing, your posture says another. You smile while suppressing disappointment. You act agreeable when your intuition says, "Leave." And in these contradictions, your energy becomes scattered. People feel that incoherence, even if they cannot explain it. And that feeling creates distance. Not out of judgment, but out of instinct. Every human being, whether consciously or not, is searching for alignment. Alignment between thought and word, word and deed, deed and value. When you become that alignment, others are magnetized. They are not drawn to your perfection, but to your consistency. They trust you because you are not pretending. They feel safe, not because you are predictable, but because you are whole. To live inauthentically is exhausting. You begin to create versions of yourself depending on who is in the room. You exaggerate certain traits to gain approval. You suppress others to avoid rejection. But every time you abandon a part of yourself for connection, you teach your nervous system that love is conditional. Over time, you forget who you really are. And when someone finally does fall for you, you quietly wonder, do they love me? Or just the version of me I constructed for them? The truth is, the more masks you wear, the more you lose your magnetism. Because magnetism does not come from performance. It comes from peace. Inner peace creates outer pull. There was once a woman who struggled in every relationship she entered. She was generous, charming, emotionally expressive. But again and again, the men she dated would draw close, then disappear. Each time she was left wondering, what did I do wrong? But when she finally sat still with herself, not in judgment, but in inquiry, she noticed a pattern. With each man, she had tried to become the version of herself she thought he would want. With the artistic one, she became poetic. With the intellectual, she became analytical. With the spiritual, she became mystical. She was fluid, adaptive, and attentive.